Welcome back to the Laravel News Creator Series. Today we're joined by Tim Leland, who is the creator of T.ly, which is a URL shortening service that's I had been in business for a while now. But Tim, welcome to the show, and let me know if I missed anything there in that little intro.
No, that's pretty good. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Sweet, sweet. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Now, you've been in Laravel for quite a while, right? You got started back in the early days?
Yeah, so graduated college, computer science degree, kind of went that standard route, and worked a software development job doing that and IT type stuff, and then started building websites on the side. So I built some like local businesses websites, and I started just trying to figure out what can I use to build a site, and I stumbled upon Jeffrey Way and Laracast, but he was doing, I think it was NetTuts Code Igniter tutorials way back, maybe like 2013, 2012, and I watched like everything he put out, and then he kind of switched over to Laravel, and that's when I kind of followed him and just watched everything on Laracast that he put out, and just pretty much learned it from him. I kind of give him credit for teaching me a lot of my early coding styles, and getting me into Laravel. And then I'm kind of grateful for that, because I would say obviously if you're watching this, Laravel saves you a ton of time and all the advantages of it. So I took advantage of all that Laravel had to offer back in 2014.
That's awesome. Yeah. He was, back in those days, it was like there was not a whole lot of like really good training material out or anything, and he sort of brought everybody on board. It was really amazing what he was able to do and accomplish. And then going from that NetTuts over to creating Laracast, and now it's kind of the de facto training resource for all kinds of stuff. So that's one of the big reasons I think Laravel grew in the beginning, was because of him. That was awesome.
Yeah, he just made it really easy to learn. So I mean, obviously going through school, you learn some things, but then when you start actually doing it in the real world, how to get a website hosted, and I was a early like Laravel Forge user, so I was actually looking at that a couple weeks ago, and I think I signed up in like 2014. I don't know when it was started, but I've been using that to host sites and just building side projects, learning, trying to learn how to grow a website or an app or whatever, so marketing type stuff. Just that's kind of been my journey.
That's awesome. Well, so speaking of your product, it's T.ly, and how did that come about? Like, you just like one day woke up and be like, hey, I want to make a URL shortener, or was there like something that driven you to create this?
Yeah, so a lot of developers, it's even like a coding challenge that they do for like software interviews. So they'll say, hey, how would you design a link shortener? So it's kind of like a classic computer science software developer project that people always like to build. But what got me started was a company I was working for. They needed an application for like online giving, and it was going to be through text messages. So they wanted to be able to send a link, and in doing that, the URL had to have some encoding in it and some special stuff to kind of like log them in behind the scenes. So they wanted a way to send that, but the URL is so long. So that led to, well, we need a URL shortener. And we looked at, some of the options out there and decided, well, we could just build our own, use our own, short domain. And I think I built like a very simple version in, maybe over a weekend, pretty much. It was a few days. So built that, kind of saw, we found value in it. And then fast forward, I think that maybe was like 2016, 2017. But fast forward, Google kind of announced that they were shutting down their free URL shortener. And that kind of prompted me to build initially a browser extension. So I didn't really plan to build my own service, but I was building browser extensions for like Chrome and Firefox, and as just like a side project. So I built a link shortener extension, and what it did is it used all these other services, so like Bitly, TinyURL, and a bunch of other free ones. And yeah, so that was kind of where I got. So I saw that, you know, businesses needed it. Built the extension because Google announced they were shutting down their service, and then the extension grew just because you know, people were looking for alternatives once Google kind of shut their service down.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I've actually been using it, man, for a few months now. My use case was, you know, we send out newsletters, and then if we have sponsors, then they're like, well, you know, can you give me, you know, stats on my links in your newsletter? And I'm like, yeah, and it's always annoying because then I have to go to the newsletter software and like pull up, you know, that campaign and then just try to figure out how many people clicked and all that stuff. So I was like, well, there's got to be an easier way. And then so I signed up, and now I use the TLY links in the newsletter, and then I can share the stats, you know, from your website over to the sponsor, and they can just look at everything and see, you know, how many clicks it got and all the other stuff. So it's been really, really handy for me, just you know, having that simple way of, you know, making everybody happy. So I really like the service. I think it's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's always great hearing, you know, people using it. You know, if you do a lot of support, you usually only hear like the negative stuff and the problems, but it's always nice hearing the positives. And that's a great use case because it's not really, you don't really need the links to be like short. And that's what people usually think. Like, you know, obviously, you know, short link it's called a URL shortener, but it's also great for if you just need something to, you know, track engagement and like, all right, how many people are clicking on links and need that basic information versus like having to spin up your own software on your back end to track clicks. And, you know, if you just want something quick to track that, it's really useful.
For sure. You know, so you know, everybody thinks, I know I'm probably the same way. It's like, oh, well, you know, we're just mapping two fields in the database or whatever. But there's way more to it right behind the scenes. Like I assume you have to have like tons of like spam tracking and all this other stuff. Is that sort of accurate? It's like way more involved than you think.
Yeah. So initially I built the extension, it's like link shortener or URL shortener extension, and it just used APIs. So that was the very first version of the product, was just an API, create a short link, and then on the actual like domain t.ly, it would just redirect. I didn't have like logins or, you know, any kind of interface. But then, yeah, as soon as you know, that part is what most people think of, just, you know, in a database, you have one table that just stores, you know, a long URL, short URL, and redirect. But yeah, as soon as you get analytics and then, you know, just trying to like scale some of that stuff, and you get one URL that kind of blows up and gets tons of traffic, you still got to, you know, track all that. You can't just, you know, cache it or something like that. You got to know that, you know, where the users are coming from and how to scale that. So it gets more complicated for sure. And then, like you said, the spam thing, you know, there's definitely a lot of that, a lot of automated bots, and, you know, you got to build in detection for that type of stuff.
Yeah. That sort of reminds me of just me personally, because so to give everybody a little backstory, so I added some of the short links to the website, and just for some of the sponsors that we have, and they were getting just tons of clicks, and it was like, this is a lot, you know. So I emailed Tim, and I was like, you know, what's going on here? And he's like, you've got a thing hitting it. It was like certain IPs. So then I went to Cloudflare, and it was like, sure enough, it was like Cloudflare was not blocking, you know, these 3 IPs that were just like, you know, hitting my server so hard. So then I just created a firewall rule, block those, and now everything's back to normal. And like, you know, I'm not getting hit by all the stuff anymore. So, you know, all that stuff's super useful to have, and to be able to, you know, track it down the way you're able to use, you know, using your service. So.
Yeah. So that's good to know. So you were able to find that out. And they were hitting Laravel News directly. So they were hitting your service and then like scanning all the links on there.
Yeah. It was almost like a, like a scraper bot type thing.
Yep.
And so yeah, and then I was able to block those, and just the request just went, way down, which is interesting. I mean, they wasn't actually, I guess they weren't using JavaScript, so they weren't making it to my analytics. So they were only coming in through, I could only see them in Cloudflare itself, not through my own, site analytics. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, Cloudflare that's a whole nother piece we can get into, but like what Cloudflare does, and I use them, but their DDoS protection and just all of their automated stuff to protect your site. As soon as you get a site that gets enough traffic, it's just like a constant target for DDoS attacks or just automated scraping tools. I think I had one time some automated bot. I just had crazy analytics logs that were just like, well, this isn't normal, what's going on? And ended up being some bot was scraping every single short URL in my system and just nonstop just hammering my servers. And there's a lot of stories like that you got malicious people, and then you got people that are just doing who knows what. And a lot of times it's in all these other countries that you're like, all right, what's going on in Russia or something like that?
That part's crazy. And well, even the DDoS stuff is like, my website's Laravel News. It's like, it's just a news website. Why, and then one morning I wake up and Cloudflare's like, you had a DDoS attack. We have, automatically mitigated this. And I'm like, why would somebody try to DDoS me? Like, what's going on here? It's just crazy.
Yeah. I don't understand it, but it's a problem I'd be curious to hear from other people. I see it every once in a while, but I guess that's Cloudflare is pretty valuable in that. To help stop it, they do a pretty good job with just detecting it, but then you got to customize and do different things to prevent it. I could go down a whole long rabbit hole of that, of some of the stuff I've had to do.
For sure. So are you you're still hosting it or using Forge to provision and do everything for the service, or?
No, I still use Forge. I wish I knew about Laravel Cloud about 6 months ago. I don't know when. So what I was running into is I was adding servers, and then as I'd start getting more and more traffic, I was just manually provision servers, which worked fine. But I got to a point where I was like, okay, let me see what I can do. And I use Forge with DigitalOcean, and that's what I've just always used for, all these projects. And DigitalOcean came out with, I think it's called App Platform, which is like their automated scaling system. And maybe 6 months ago, I went through and they added some new features and stuff, and I was able to migrate it to that so that I have it to where it will auto scale, and as it needs more servers or whatever, if I get a lot of traffic one day, it will scale up, scale down. So I kind of migrated some of my apps to it, but I still use Forge for other things, some of my other projects I do.
Gotcha. Yeah. See, I've never had to deal with really auto scaling at all for what I do. I can run a cheap box and we just cache everything, and it's pretty simple. So yeah, that's going to be, I think that will be a really nice use case for cloud, is the auto scaling and all that stuff. But I'm actually not even on DigitalOcean. I'm still using Linode, which got bought by somebody, and but Akamai, I think, might have bought them. But it's been working fine. It's just a cheap server there. But you mentioned some extensions, so this brings back memories. I think the first time I interviewed you, you had a weather extension for Chrome that was like crazy popular, and if I'm not mistaken, the back end was Laravel, but then the front end was just the Chrome, whatever you write Chrome plugins in.
Yeah. I think I remember that was. I think you were going to do a series like this, but on Laravel News, and it was going to be focused on interviewing people building stuff. So yeah, I started a weather extension just for my own use case. I was into building extensions, and I wanted something like a little icon that shows the current weather in my browser. So, I just built it and put it out there. I think it was using the Dark Sky API originally. If you remember that app, it was a really popular iOS app. And I think I had, 1,000 free API requests, and I put it out there and I was like, this will be fine. And real quickly, as it grew, that ran out real fast. So then I was having to figure out, all right, how do I, make money off this thing, because it was just free. So what I realized is people were donating money because they just liked it. So people were sending me money on like PayPal for building it to try to support it. So then I put like a upgrade button. So it's still going. It's out there. I've enjoyed working on it. I haven't really done a lot of updates recently. It's kind of been stable. People haven't been asking for anything, but yeah, if you go to weatherextension.com and you want to check it out, but it kind of, runs itself. It covers the bills. I have like an upgrade on there, and, it's built on Laravel, the back end. So it's one of the reasons it was growing, and then it got hit by, once again, talking about as soon as you start getting any kind of traffic or bigger, it got spammed by maybe a competitor. I still don't know to this day, but it got spammed with thousands of 1-star reviews. So it was like 5-star review, people liked it, and then overnight, Google, I guess they didn't have any kind of spam protection on their stuff. I went from 5 stars to like 1 star, like overnight. And once you get bad ratings, it kind of demotes it and it doesn't really show up, and it kind of stopped growing as fast as it was. And then, I started building other projects and, kind of moved on. Once I realized most people expect the weather to be free, like, most weather apps are free and, or ad supported, and you can't really do ads inside of an extension super great. So I kind of moved on to something else, but it was a fun project. And, that's the type of stuff like that, to then building other things, have all kind of built up my knowledge base on how to like keep a site like t.ly even running, because of, the DDoS attacks or the spam attacks, or, people trying to steal your API keys and all kinds of just malicious stuff that you have to deal with. I've learned a lot from it. So
that's awesome. The Dark Sky, I don't know if you're listening, if you remember Dark Sky, but it was awesome back in the day. It was like the best weather app, and then Apple bought them, and then shut them down. I guess they integrated it with their current weather app, maybe. What'd you end up having to switch to? Is it like a government API you can call, and it's just free now, or?
Yeah, there's two. You can, if you upgrade, I think you get access to another one. There's somebody built a pretty much the same API endpoint and similar data sets, and they built it, to kind of take the place of it. Oh, several companies did, but I kind of integrated with 2 of them, and they have, pretty good pricing models and similar data. But people, the one complaint I still get is people email me saying your extension says, it's not supposed to rain, but it's raining. What? And I'm like, okay, I have nothing to do with the weather. I'm just showing you the data and the API. So it's kind of, I get blamed for weather all around the world from this extension, which I just tell them, okay, I don't really know what I can do, but yeah, there are government sites, and I debated on, well, maybe I could just build my own weather API service and charge for it. And, I had this experience with the weather stuff. So I looked at that, and then, kind of just decided to integrate and move on to other stuff. But like, you can, for the United States, at least, you can use the weather APIs. And I think that's what a lot of these services are doing. They're just government APIs. But to build a service, you really have to integrate. And if you want it to work worldwide, you have to integrate with all these weather providers all around the world. And kind of, you take all of their data and morph it into one single API that's just like longitude, latitude, and then return that. And I just decided not not to go down that road, but probably would have been a good idea, and then could have sold it like Dark Sky did. They had an API that was the best that everybody used for weather applications.
Right. This is sort of off topic from Laravel or whatever, but why do all the local like news cast have their own weather apps? Is it they're just selling advertising off of that, and that's how they're making money? Is that their whole thing with having their own weather apps?
I don't. Yeah, I would imagine they want their own, branding, and a lot of it. A lot of those sites are all advertising. Like you almost can't even go to them because the ads are so bad without an ad blocker. Yeah, I don't really have an answer to that other than they do claim though, like your local weatherman will claim he's accurate. Don't listen to like I've seen things. Don't look at your weather on your phone because it's not going to work. And there is a certain part of that, but then what's the one job that you can be wrong 50% of the time and not get fired as a weatherman?
Yes.
So, anyways, I don't know, but yeah, the weather stuff is kind of it. Maybe it'll get better. AI may fix it. Maybe AI will be able to read the weather and make more accurate predictions. I've heard of that stuff, but that's what Dark Sky was kind of. I don't know how they were doing it or what they were doing, but they were supposedly analyzing radar and were giving, you back in the people wouldn't be amazed by this today, but back in the day it was you would get an alert that it's going to rain in 10 minutes. Yes. And they were pretty accurate with it, and nobody else was doing that. It was neat though, what they were able to do.
Yeah, that was awesome because I like to play golf, and I would always have Dark Sky with the alerts on, and you'd be playing golf and be like, it's going to rain in 10 minutes, and sure, it was pretty accurate almost every time. It was like we would run to the trees and hide, or run to the little cart barn or something, and it was pretty accurate. It was very rare that it gave me an alert and it didn't happen. So I really like that part of the app. That was sweet.
Yeah, it was good. That's what got me interested in it. Was wanting that on in my browser, and I was into extensions, and I'd built a few other extensions, and that extensions and Laravel are kind of what got me into building side projects. Just I always liked to build stuff that got I would get users, and even if it was free, just people using my stuff. I thought was really neat.
Yeah, for sure. The anything else you've got out? I know you've got. I'm trying to remember. I remember the weather extension. Yeah. So well, to back up a bit, because you talked about our first interview. Yeah. So back in the day, I created a series called the Artisan Files, and I would just send questions out to people that were building stuff in Laravel. And this is sort of like a video podcast format of that. Maybe I should have renamed this and not call it the Creator Series and call it the Artisan Files. But yeah, that brings back so many memories now, and I'm glad you brought that up. That was fun.
Yeah, I enjoy talking about this stuff, and like I said, just putting most of my stuff was I put it out there for free, and then if it blew up, I would figure out how can I make money off this, or at least pay for it and keep it going. That's just how I've always done things. What kind of got me into it is I realized I made a blog, timleland.com, and I put a post out, and I guess it was just pure luck, but the post blew up and got shared on like some big news sites, and then overnight I woke up and it was like made several $100s off of affiliate revenue from like Amazon and stuff, and then also once I put like ads on there, I was able to make money off that. So that kind of was like, wait, I can go to sleep, wake up, and have made money overnight. I was like, okay, maybe there's something else here. I need to figure out what else can I do. And that's, why I just kept building stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you, speaking to developers that maybe want to get into creating their own products and stuff like that, is that sort of, looking back, is that sort of what you would recommend, is just build stuff that you like and see if it takes off, and if it does, figure out a way to charge for it versus going the other route of like spending 6 months and being like, all right, this is paid up front, things like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because you're going to build stuff, and if you put a ton of time into like planning it, and I would talk to people, and they'd be like, "Yeah, we're going to start a business," and they would go get a business plan, and they would go make an LLC for the business and hire lawyers, and they haven't made a penny. And
Right.
I was like, I'm just going to build the thing, put it out there, and if it picks up traction, then figure out the next steps. Because maybe you would get lucky on the first one, but I've built so many small little apps and just put them out there and just kind of, and a lot of them, like you said, are things I was interested in. So the weather thing I was interested in because I wanted a weather extension in my browser, and I wanted to learn how browser extensions work because I was, I used a ton of different extensions. And then, T.ly was created because I saw Google shutting down their service, and I thought it would be a neat project, and originally built the extension, and then so I built the extension, and it grew to like maybe 200,000 users, and I was like, okay, you got 200,000 users. If just 1% converts to paying, then I'll be doing pretty good. And that's just kind of how I've done things. Is just have an idea. Build it, put it out there, and just see, watch it and see how it grows. If it doesn't go anywhere, I eventually kind of just kill it off and then move on to the next thing. More recently, though, since I've been focused on T.ly, I've kind of quit some of that because I've, wanted to make sure I stay focused on it. But before this, I was, every week I was building something different.
Yeah, we developers have that problem. I think we get in this mindset of we got to keep building stuff, and not focus on the actual business that's actually working. And then we then we just kind of let it fail because of lack of attention, not lack of how good it is. So that's a really good reminder there. That and it sort of reminds me of the way I started, in the whole development thing was, my first product was actually a classified script. You could buy it and like run your own Craigslist, I guess, but this was way before Craigslist was a thing. And, it was all because, I was working at a motorcycle dealership, and people would bring their motorcycles in to try to trade them in. And we're like, we can't take your trade or whatever. And I'm like, but you can go here and place, put it on my pre-loved motorcycles website. And, so then, I was like, well, I could probably sell this. And then it just kind of picked up steam and, lasted a few years, made some money. So it's always fun when you build something that you actually are passionate about and enjoy, because that actually keeps you engaged over what it's going to take to build a successful product, I think.
Oh yeah, that's funny you say that. One of the first projects I built with Laravel was like a Craigslist, but the goal it was going to be, Craigslist was popular, but people were like posting that they were being like kidnapped, and they would meet up to buy something. So I was like, how can I integrate this with like social media or something? So I created a Craigslist, but it required Facebook login. And then it was going to be like, oh, I could see your Facebook profile, and then I could see you're friends with somebody that I know, and kind of build that trust. And, I built it, and it grew, and it was, a neat project. And then about 6 months after I built it and working on it, Facebook launched Facebook Marketplace, which was pretty much what I built. And that was kind of the sign. Okay, let me go ahead and shut this down real quick, because obviously Facebook Marketplace kind of took off, and it was pretty much the same idea. So at least it validated what I was thinking people wanted. So
yeah, even today, I think Marketplace is now taking over Craigslist. Like everybody locally is always like Facebook Marketplace, and I don't think I've heard Craigslist in years, anybody using it. So that's, that was that was actually a really good idea, because that was a unique use case back then when all that didn't exist. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting what Craigslist, if you look at their traffic, I bet it's on a just constant decline. But I think they made money off of selling maybe like job postings, and I'm guessing people are still doing that. But
Yeah.
those sites are crazy how like they haven't updated it or at least visually in 20 years. It's a interesting thing that they just don't care, or that's just the business model. But
I mean, I kind of like it, just the nostalgic look. It's kind of like that news website. God, it's been around, man, since the 90s. Drudge Report. You know, it's just it literally looks like it was built in front page. It's just like one page, and they just update links on it all day long. It's like that. You know, it's kind of, the novelty's kind of cool on it. I kind of like that.
yeah, I mean, that's the type of thing, like if you could build, I mean, it'd be hard to build that today, but build something that could just get constant traffic, and I imagine, are there ads on there? That's probably how they make money, either that or like sponsored posts or something. But you know, you build something, and that's one thing. If you could build something that doesn't require like paying users, that's always a bonus. If you can figure out how to build like, you know, one of these free online tools that, you know, are sponsored by ads or something like that. Those are, you know, always a interesting business model, where you don't have users, you don't have a ton of support, and you don't have to worry about a lot of the problems that come with it.
True. So to switch gears back to Laravel, like what's your, I'm trying to think of how to word it to kind of do something interesting. Like what's your favorite Laravel feature? Like what's one thing that Laravel provides that you can't live without?
So I mean, there's a lot that I could go with, but I think it's just, if I want to build something, I'm trying to think. I threw up a website not too long ago, and yeah, if you just want to build a site and you want authentication and you want to connect to a database, like not having to rebuild all that scaffolding, I guess, is the reason that I've always used Laravel, because I've worked for, you know, software companies where everything is built in-house, and it's like, if you were to build this application, you'd spend, you know, 6 months building the groundwork, and I'm like, they could just use Laravel and skip, you know, 6 months of work, and they're probably doing it, you know, not as good as how Laravel, you know, if they're building their own authentication, the bugs and the security issues that come with that. So I think just being able to like build a new application real quickly, and you get all that groundwork already done to where you can just get it and put it live. But some of the stuff, I mean, I take advantage of is just like the caching, how easy it is to cache stuff. And then obviously like the database and queues, so jobs. Just, I've worked for companies where if like, okay, we're going to put this on a job, and it's like this complicated process, versus in Laravel, it's just so easy to do. That's I guess my main reasons for going with it.
That makes sense. Yeah. The well, are you using you know, anything sort of unique or wild in any of your apps that, you know, we might not know about? Like, do you have a go-to package that you always use or anything like that?
Go-to package. No, I guess it depends on, you know, the application. I try to, you know, limit any packages I pull in, just because I know that, you know, you add dependencies. No, I mean, I think I always, you know, I try to keep it pretty stock Laravel, and not, you know, build anything crazy to where if you go to, you know, upgrade versions, it's not as difficult.
Yeah.
I guess if you were to do payments, you could, you know, say like a Laravel Spark would be the biggest one. So if I were to build a new application, you know, obviously the latest version of Laravel, go with their, you know, the one trouble I've had recently is if I'm not building something new and then staying up to date with like all the changes that are coming with, like, if I just want to, build a new application, you go to install it and it gives you so many options. And then you're like, okay, I got to research all the different front ends it's now supporting. My favorite time was just when you would build it and it was using like Vue. I'm a big Vue.js fan. But you would build it. It was a Vue, that was the one front end. And then it was using Laravel Mix for, building your assets and compiling them. It just seemed simpler, but maybe it's just because I was doing a whole lot more new projects versus now there's so many options. It feels like, I don't even know all of the options that there are.
Yeah, I think it's like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It steps through everything. Everything from what database. You pick your front end scaffolding. And then once you pick that, I think then you pick what do you want, Livewire, Vue, or Alpine, or not, whatever the other thing is. But yeah, it's definitely grown. From that standpoint. Having to pick through all the different things as you go install a brand new app. Which is interesting. It's sort of, I don't know if there's a good way of doing it. From from a Laravel standpoint, because they want to offer all these things and make everybody happy. It's like, how could you simplify all that? But maybe in Laravel 12 they'll come up with something ingenious and we won't have to even think about them anymore.
Yeah, sometimes less options is better. Just go with it and then figure out that one, and then not have to make a decision. That may be an interesting way, but yeah, I liked it when I just could spin it up and it was, I knew what I was getting. I think like even now you can like pick don't install authentication, which I guess makes sense because there's not always going to be authentication. Not all applications are going to be needing auth, but yeah, it's tricky. I read sometimes where Taylor will post, whatever, he's trying to make this person happy, but then this whole group's going to be, upset, or he wants to have these different front end languages. And yeah, anyways, it's a tough job.
Yeah. I don't envy that part of building a very successful framework. It just seems like it's, no matter what you do, somebody's going to be mad. So you just have to make a decision and go with it.
Yeah.
And then get feedback and then maybe adjust or pivot in the future. But yeah, that's very true. Well, Tim, what, anything else that maybe we've missed that you want to talk about before we close this thing out?
No, I think you posted something about Laravel Cloud. That's something I'm kind of interested in. That's a neat feature coming, or option coming. That's another thing of where to host it. But no, I don't really have anything else to share.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got to, speaking of Laravel Cloud, I went to Upstate PHP, which is in Greenville, South Carolina, last night, and Jason Beggs did a demo of Laravel Cloud, and it's pretty sweet. It's got a lot of the Forge feel to it. You can kind of do everything you can do in Forge. This is from my point of view. I'm not I've only ever used Forge, so I don't know the differences and all the all the cloud stuff. But yeah, I mean, and then it spins up servers, can hibernate them, can do all the other stuff. So it's really sweet, and of course the UI looks really good. I'm sort of interested on what they're going to do with it in the future, because I think, I don't know, I just get the vibes like you're going to be able to do so much more with cloud. Like Laravel New, probably that can integrate with cloud, and then you don't even have to make half these decisions anymore, because it's just going to automatically upload it, and you've got your site, and it just defaults to whatever they like the most. So I don't know. I'm sort of interested what the next year holds. I know cloud's supposed to come out sometime this quarter, so that should be pretty interesting and sweet.
Yeah, that will be neat. Just to make it simple, like somebody wants to build a website, and there's so many steps to getting a website built and putting it online, but making it easier to where all that's kind of working together is definitely neat. But
yeah,
no, this
sure. Go ahead.
No, that's kind of it. I was, what was I going to say? Yeah, I don't know. That's really neat.
Yeah. And so speaking of all the steps, though, it feels like there is a lot now, but like if you think back into like the early 2000s, it was like a lot of steps, and now it's with Forge and all these other things, it's pretty simple. But it still is a lot of steps, and it seems like all that should be streamlined. So I'm liking the future that we're all headed into.
Oh yeah, yeah. It will be interesting what they do with. I see a lot of like malicious links with the T.ly, so I deal with that. But like Vercel and Cloudflare, like their workers pages, those are constantly targeted for like malicious links and stuff. So I'm curious of how Laravel is going to handle that. I imagine they're already know that's going to be a problem, but I think they're going to, if they give you a way to see, if they're doing the hosting themselves, I'm curious of how they're going to handle that, because before with Forge, they didn't really have to handle that. They kind of just offloaded that to like Linode or DigitalOcean, but that's going to be a challenge for them.
That's very true. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, I haven't even thought about that, but yeah, that's because you could spin up any spam site off of I assume they give you a subdomain or something, and then just be like,
yep,
oh yeah. Oh,
that's usually how it is. I think I've seen that on their platform to where it will be like a subdomain, and that's nice because it's great to, you could just create a new Laravel app, put it out there, and then get a URL back that's live. But then with that, like we were talking earlier, it just comes the bad side of the internet, the malicious side of the internet comes out. So
yeah, that sort of reminds me. Do you remember GitHub Pages? You could host your own your own site with GitHub Pages, and back in the day, it was actually, I think, a subdomain off of github.com, but then they found out there was a security issue where you could actually steal cookies or something from the main.com. So now then they switched everything to, it's not off of github.com, it's off of something else. And all that, it's super interesting, all the ways, the cat and mouse of you
Yep.
figure out something cool, and then they just figure out how to break it and scam people, and then it's like it never ends.
Oh yeah, and they probably switched the domain because the GitHub domain was probably constantly getting flagged, and that's the whole topic we could go down. But the domains get flagged and they get put on these blacklist, and then browsers block them. It's all kinds of crazy stuff happens. So, anyways,
yeah, deep dark rabbit hole that we can jump down one day.
maybe, we can do a follow up sometime.
That sounds good. Well, Tim, I don't want to hold you up all day, but man, I appreciate you taking the time to come meet with me and talk about everything you're building. And if you're out there and you're looking for a nice URL shortening service, T.ly is the way to go. I'm a customer actually, and supporter of it. So go check them out for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.